Welcome everyone to Larger Stories Book of the Month. I'm your host, Rachael Crabb. Just a quick announcement before we get started here on for our Book of the Month scheduled for next month, June. And we're actually going to be chatting about the book, God of My Fathers, which was a book my dad wrote with his dad, my grandfather. And my brother and I each have a chapter in that book. We wrote that book many years ago together. So I'll be joined by my brother, Ken Crabb. And we'll be chatting through what that process was all about. And so we're excited for that. A quick reminder too, is if you have any questions or comments today about the session or for some of the people joining us today, there's a question and answer, a Q&A button down at the bottom of the frame that you have on screen. If you just want to click that button, you can type in your question or your comment. And if we have time at the end of today, we'll make sure that we get to that. So, and today we're going to be discussing the book, Listen In. It's by Rachael Crabb, Sonya Reeder, and Diana Calvin. And I've got those three ladies with me today. So welcome, ladies. And the reason we chose to do this book today and for this month is because it's been a Mother's Day month. And so I just want to say to you gals, happy Mother's Day, belated Mother's Day, and welcome. And thanks for being with me today.
Thank you, Kep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So just as we get started, why don't you guys just introduce yourselves and let me know where's your, not just what you're doing and what you're up to nowadays, but where's your red dot? Where are you at right now internally as you come to this webinar and get ready to chat about a book that you wrote several years ago? Mom, why don't you take it away?
Oh, I was going to say, you girls go first.
I always say, because you always love to go last, right, Mom? Okay.
Okay, I'll start. I'm Diana Calvin. I am a co-pastor of Trinity Fellowship Church in Richardson, Texas. I am, as of just a few months ago, kind of a bivocational pastor. I am also a technical writer for a software development firm. My red dot, well, I just had my second melanoma removal surgery 2 days ago. So I'm kind of, it was early and I'm fine, but I'm just definitely realizing that our bodies are frail and mine is no exception. I'm super healthy otherwise. So this is kind of a new thing for me to embrace. I'm definitely also just grieving for the children in Uvalde, Texas, and those families, grieving for the women who have tried to tell their stories of sexual abuse in the Southern Baptist Convention and have been treated so terribly. So those things are heavy on my heart. And because I had this surgery, I had a lot of time to read and process it. So, but it's kind of neat for me to think about what conversations like this could do to help us work through those things in ways that bring hope and healing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Diana. Sonya, where are you today?
Well, I am Sonya Reeder, and I'm the director of Hope Road Counseling, and I'm actually in Longview, Texas, literally in Longview, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I just am so, I just love getting to do what I do. We have a counseling center here that we do a number of things. We do counseling and we also do groups, and I'm continuing to learn the importance of community. We just launched last year a spiritual formation group for ministry leaders, pastors, pastors' wives, and different people among East Texas areas. And that was the highlight, I think, of my week, just getting to sit with them. So sometimes I just, what I do feels overwhelming, the stories we hear. And those times I just, I'm so delighted that I get to have the opportunity to do what I do. So that plays into how I am internally too, I think, is depends on the hour of the day sometimes, Kep, when you ask me that, because there's times that feels weary and life feels too much. And then there's other times I'm in a season of life. My husband and I, David, are kind of empty nesters, and we just love our grandchildren. We love getting to sit in our recliners. We literally have reached that place where we look at each other and go, you do know that we're old now, right? You're in yours and I'm in my refiner. So,
Isn't her?
but his and hers, that's right. And we have arrived in that place.
Yeah.
So I think I hold both of those at the same time. I'm aware of what Diana was saying about what just happened in Texas with the elementary school and the children there and the families, and then the whole thing with the SPC and the cover up and the personas and all that gets hidden.
Yeah.
And just that breaks my heart. So I grieve and then I celebrate too where we are and what I get to do.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting as you're talking about some of the stuff that's going on and you talk about grieving. I know, Mom, you've probably understood grieving a little differently in the last year plus. Where are you today?
I'm, every day is a new day. And, when things happen like the painter not being here or the guy putting things together for me, getting sick when he came in my house yesterday to put things together. It's just, and then coming home from Greece and having spent 10 days there. And then going straight from Athens to Newark to Denver for Jacob's graduation. I've been busy, but the trip was the hardest I've done because it was making up for a trip that Larry was going to go. And his dream was to always go to the fjords. That was his bucket list. And so I didn't go to the fjords. A friend and I, Bible study golf partner in Denver, Colorado, and I took off for Greece.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal, but there were so many times things we did I wanted to tell him about. And I realized, I think on this trip, this was the hardest. I moved 3 times since he passed away. I've done, a lot of things have had to fall into place. And so I was busy the first year. I mean, it was really hard, and I'm not organized at all yet. I'm hoping by the middle of July, I'll be organized, which of course my grandchildren say to me, but Nana, you're always getting organized.
Just got to organize myself.
Yeah. So it was hard. And I'm at the place where I've had great last couple of weeks, a really nice time in Greece, wonderful opportunities to talk to people about the Lord. And I know I'm a lifestyle evangelist. I mean, I know that is what I long to do.
Like your dad.
Like my dad. And I loved this week. In the last month, I found out that one of my covenant sisters of 25 years moved down the road from me, from Denver, Colorado. From Evergreen, Colorado. And I can just tell you what joy that brings me. And anyhow, that was fun to talk to her. And she was still at another home she has. And she called, we talked to her, and then she said, she was trying to get a hold of me. I'm not making phone calls back to people. There are times I just can't, even though they're not asking me the tough questions. And so the neat thing is I told her I'd be home on May the 16th from my trips. And May the 16th, she texted and said, "Are you home yet?" And it was really just fun. So
well, I guess I forgot to mention, let's just use a short phrase to tell us where our red dot is.
Oh, my red dot is, it's sort of still the measles. I still have the measles. I don't have just a red dot.
Okay. You got a lot of red dots, a lot of things happening. Gotcha.
Mhm. Yeah.
We're glad you're back from Greece safely and all that stuff. Well, you guys wrote a book that was published in 2015 called Listen In. And I just got done reading the book and I really enjoyed it. And I said, I kind of apologetically, I had perused it when you guys first wrote it, but I didn't really sit down and read it. So the fact that I sat down and actually spent some time reading it over the last week or two was really fun. But you guys talk about building faith and friendship through conversations that matter. That's the subtitle of the book, Listen In. Tell me about this notion of conversations that matter. I remember this guy that used to be around that talked about that a lot. What do you guys mean by conversations that matter? Anyone?
I think for me, when we were talking about that phrase, I think we had gotten to a place in ministry and with people and just sitting and chatting that it's so easy as women, I think, to hide behind husbands and kids and talk about all that husbands are doing or what kids are doing or things that's happening in a surface kind of level. But we were having lots of women come to us, and you can help me out, ladies, if you can remember what they were, but they would come to us and they would say, we want to have conversations that really go deeper, that really matter, that really somehow further, my words are somehow further the kingdom's purposes. I mean, what could those actually look like? And could we really open ourselves up in a way and invite someone to receive us? And could we also receive them in that same way?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about you guys? What in terms of conversations that matter? How do you do that? What does that look like to you guys? I mean, you've apparently, writing this book, just so people know, it took you guys 7 years to write this book. And a lot of the reasons that it did was because this was the day and age before we all had the Zoom conferencing calls where we could easily do this. And you were all living in different areas of the country. So you'd get together and write the book, not to mention each of your mothers, mom, my grandmother at the beginning of the process. And then it sounds like Sonya towards the middle of the process and Diana towards the end of the process. Each of your mothers passed away.
Yeah.
Which of course I understand how that can delay the process. What was that like as you're having these conversations and trying to do this book, and now all of a sudden you've lost your mothers?
In some ways, it made it easier for us to do the book. I have to tell you, quite frankly, there are things that maybe we wouldn't have wanted to share at the time, because we all know the backstory of all of our lives. We did get to know that. And there were just some things that you don't want to murder someone when you're writing a book. So you have to watch what you say. And it comes from the heart, and it's the truth, what you say. But you just don't want to murder someone by calling them out in some way.
I remember, I think I remember this right, Rachel, that your mom had really just passed away, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember one time being in a restaurant and I think you were wearing a sweater of hers, and you were just in the moment with us, walking through what that meant and telling us the story. And I think that's really hard to do. At least it is for me, to actually invite someone into the moment. I can talk about how I'm feeling from a distance, but to actually say, this is what I'm feeling right now, and I want to invite you into it. And Rachel, I think that was kind of new for you. Is that
Very
true?
new, very new. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I didn't even realize what I was doing because I never felt heard. I felt like I didn't have a voice most of my life. And you girls were interested in why I was wearing this sweater. It was a Christmas sweater that I had put away a year ago. Before that, we had met. That was our second meeting.
Well, I think what was so sweet about that is that you set the mood, Rach, in that restaurant. Diane, I think it was La Madeleine in Dallas.
It was yes.
And you set the mood for the rest of the years it took us to write this book, because you really did. You opened yourself up, as Diana said. And I remember sitting there, and even the moments we were very quiet with you.
Yeah.
You kind of just reflected on.
Yeah. I felt heard. I felt like I wasn't a dimwit bringing something up. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how has you guys wrote this book together? It took you a while to do it. You got to know each other well. It's now been a little bit of time since the book's been written. A lot has happened in between then and now, to say the very least. How has your friendship changed? Just to where it is today from where it was then.
I think I think for me, it's changed in that I don't talk to him all the time. I don't see him. I mean, the last I saw Diana was at Larry's funeral in Charlotte. And I've seen Sonya since, but
At the
I
summit.
think it makes me more aware of who they are. And when they
Mm.
come across, I want to be praying for them. I want to, I think I have a heart bonding that I hope they feel.
Mm.
Mhm. Whether I see them or don't see them. There's things we know about each other that
There's a
this
connection
conversation
there. There's a
matter.
bond there that you guys have that doesn't require constant communication. It's just you have those friendships that you can easily pick up where you were before. It sounds like you guys have that kind of a relationship with the three of you.
I mean, I feel
How did writing the book impact that relationship? I mean, where did you start and where did you end up as you were writing the book in those years?
we didn't argue about things. Yeah, we all, were very compatible, I think. But I'll see what they do. Where did we start and where did we end up?
And I'm talking from your relational standpoint.
Yeah. I think I knew Diana less than Sonya. Sonya, I got to spend every week with, essentially when she was in the counseling program. Diana, I went to Russia with her and she just, it was just wonderful. I felt
And that's
like
what kind of spurred this, isn't that right, Mom? That was kind of that
I
trip
think
to
it did.
Russia.
Yeah.
With Diana was kind of the catalyst to get this to go, and then Sonya came in.
Because she and Diana knew each other, and I
Okay.
thought that would be a good connection because I felt very close to Sonya.
So you
No.
knew each other before you started this a little bit,
Yes.
and then
Right.
Mom, you go on a trip with Diana. Obviously, Sonya goes through the counseling program with Dad, and then you guys come together. So you started somewhere, and where did you finish as friends and in relational connection after the process?
Well, we care about each other.
More than you
I
did when you started?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I feel so personally.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I felt like I had been in a women's group with Diana too for several years, but I felt like at the end of the book, we it wasn't that we just knew stories about one another, but that I felt like that we really had entered one another, and not only that, but that their lives and how they walked through their stories,
Mm.
how you guys walked through your stories, Rachel, Diana, that enticed me to, encouraged me to have courage to walk through mine.
Mhm. I think that's true too. And now I think we're even more open about
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We started the book. Go ahead, Dinah.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the fact that we kept going and there were a lot of hurdles. I had a young child at the time. I know Sonya had older kids, but lots going on. And there were so many things that could have derailed this. And so I think really it was what was happening in those conversations in those weekends that just
Mhm.
kept all of us wanting to come back.
Hmm.
For me, it really wasn't about the book anymore. At some point, it was just like, wow, I want to see this through. I want to go through this with these ladies.
Mhm.
And I want to invite other women to be able to experience this too. And
Yeah.
that's
think
really
that's it.
what I hoped for. And I do think that we ended up at a different place than when we started.
Yeah.
I think having done the book, Kep,
Yeah.
I think it colors everything that I do now, even. Because there was a part that as I started it, I went in hesitant, and I tend to kind of keep things close in some ways, but but for us to all sit down and make a commitment to one another to say, let's tell a shaping event in our lives that have shaped who we are. And it shaped how we relate to people, events that's happened to us that we carry a lot of shame over, hurt over, that we've never told or we've never explored. And having Rachael and Diana just explore that part of my heart helped me learn how to do that.
That's awesome.
It also felt really good.
Yeah.
And I get the opportunity now to do that with a lot of women, whether it's in women's groups or counseling session. And so it does color a lot of what I do.
These relationships here have kind of impacted those relationships as you move forward. Diana, you mentioned that when the weekends would come around, you mentioned that it was kind of those weekends that got together. It was kind of you didn't say this, but a shot in the arm, or something that was kind of refreshing and something that you kind of became hungry for. Is that accurate? And you said then it became more than just about trying to put this book together, but more about, wow, we're actually journeying together. Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely describe it as a longing, just a longing to be together. Sometimes a little scary because we were going into territory that for all of us felt vulnerable. But there was something so good about it. And it just felt like we were taking each other along. We weren't just going by ourselves, and we weren't coming to each other saying, tell me what to do, fix me, whatever.
That sounds really important right there, Diana.
Yeah.
Unpack that a little bit, because so often in some of these groups you have a leader, and my dad happened to be that guy most of the time, but he always welcomed the back and forth. It was never, I'm telling you what to do or how to do it. So the way you all traveled together, unpack that a little bit more, Diana. That's really kind of fun to hear.
Well, speaking for myself, I can be, and I see this more every day, I can be that person that I'm listening to try to understand what's broken so I can help put it back together. That has really continues to shift, but definitely in the process of this book, that really did, I kind of dropped that off and just let myself be in the presence of these women. I wasn't the pastor, I wasn't the leader. And there were times when each of us led. We just kind of passed it off back and forth. And I know you can't do that in every group, but I think it's so much more important to listen curiously and attentively than it is to analyze and come up with a solution.
And Larry used to call that when he said so often, counseling is nothing more than rearranging the flesh. Whereas we didn't try to rearrange the flesh. We took it always through the grid of God's word.
Yeah.
Is what our goal was anyway.
That's certainly what Dad did.
Huh?
That's what Dad did. He ran everything through the biblical sieve.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's what we aim to do, as opposed to fix each other.
Yeah, I think we all three of us were willing to show up.
Yes.
And even if we were, fearful, as Diana was saying, but we were willing to show up. And then the idea of setting aside ourselves so that we could listen really well. So many times you can be in a group and there's just not a lot of curiosity in people. Instead, they over talk someone, or they want to, like Diana was saying, they want to teach, or they want to tell you how to fix something, or as opposed to listening. And I felt really heard by Diana, and I felt really heard by Rachael.
That's awesome. You guys talked a little bit about, it's interesting. You guys had this conversation with my dad about 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago. And so I just watched that today, just bits and pieces of it, just to kind of see what he was doing, because I didn't want to go the exact same direction Dad did in respect to what we're talking about, which I don't think we would have, given that it's been so long. But one of the things that you guys talked about was how writing this book has changed you on the other side of it. Mom, you mentioned something about confidence in who you are and what you have to say. And I remember, Diana, you talked about some of that too. You talked about Diana being a little scared going into this process as you were getting ready to tackle this and coming out of it with a real different position on that. So how does that change you? And you know, as we talk about it, just to tell you, and this is kind of a shameless marketing plug, but this is a really good book, and the design of the book is good. And I'm talking more about how you put it together, the conversations that you're having in the midst of the book, and you're watching three women have conversations that matter in this book as you're kind of running through each of the pieces. And some of the things that I really love that I thought were kind of unique to this book to some degree were the vision letters. And I know that you guys each wrote vision letters to yourself. Unfortunately, we only have Mom's vision letters to you all, which were still really powerful. But you know, those are good things to do and think about. Other things that you guys talked about are the reflecting process. How did you put this whole thing together? How did this whole thing come together? And then asking for readers' input. I thought those were just unique things, as you know, because everybody's written a book nowadays. Everybody's got a book to write, but you guys did it. You guys wrote a book and you got it published, and you put it together in a way that's really succinct but yet thoughtful. So I mean, kudos to how that process went for you three. It was exciting. I was glad to read it this last week and kind of just dive into it. And I knew more of obviously my mother's story, and I love seeing the pictures that you had, Sonya, of you and your football outfit. And you know, right. You know, and it's just fun to see and to get to know you guys a little bit more through that experience of reading the book. And I guess I didn't really want to talk as much about the book, but the process of getting to the book in respect to how you guys connected. That's to me, three people writing a book together. That's hard. That's a difficult process. You know, and you guys didn't sound like you bumped heads in ways. You really encouraged, and that speaks volumes to who you guys are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, so how do you find yourself as being changed? I mean, you wrote this book, Sonya, Diana. It's the first book you guys wrote. Hopefully, you'll write more. I know, Sonya, you're talking about possibly having that in you and coming out of you. Mom, you've written another one about hospitality, so you're a two-time author with us today. You're the veteran. But after this book, which was very different than Mom's first book, which also I've just perused. I guess I need to read that a little more thoroughly too. But
don't look at the recipes; they're not healthy.
Oh no, we don't want non-healthy recipes for sure. But I mean, this book was real. This book was you guys actually opening yourselves up. We talked about before we came on how risky it is to put this kind of stuff down on paper. You know, talk about that a little bit for you guys who just wrote this book. Was it scary putting it out, and you know, as it's coming together? What were some of your emotions going through that?
Yeah, it was scary. It was more scary for me not to put it out. Well, it was scary to put it out, but it was scary in the beginning of writing it, just being able to open myself up and tell some stories that I had never really told before. And then when it's coming out, I think there's a fear of, wow, this is going to be in print. So how do you going to change that? And if I was writing it today, I think I told you this, Kep, if I was writing it today, I think part of what I would talk about would be a little different. Yeah. But to speak about how I'm different is, in some ways, it's not a settled thing. God's still redeeming things in me, and that part of me. But I think I went into the book being willing to be, I would use the word vulnerable, where I would be intentional about opening parts of me up. And I think where I am now is that God has redeemed some of that to a place of being authentic. And so there seems to be a difference to me where vulnerable is more of a thing to do, a specific intentionality, whereas authentic is more of how I live. And so that would color if I was beginning to write the book now.
Yeah. Well, I like that. You guys want to speak to that at all?
I thought of something when she was talking, but I can't think what it was. Remember, I'm the oldest person here.
Well, here's the question: is you guys had these incredible times together? It sounds like on the weekends, and you got to know each other, you got to care for each other, you got to kind of intertwine your lives a little bit. I assume that you've all been in other groups, whether they be women's groups or whatever, that you don't have that in it. Why do you not have that? And my experience would be, why do you not have it that often? And is that true in your own lives?
I think for me, it was just never really concentrating on what was going inside me, what was going on inside of me. I always was known as the person waiting, party waiting to happen. The person, oh, good, Aunt Rachel's here, the party will begin. And I did mention that in the book,
And
that's,
you don't like that, Mom?
I like it, but that's surface. That's surface. I liked actually going deeper with these girls. They made me. I mean, they forced me into it at times. That was a deeper thing. And it was really nice to know it was a safe place. So I've always been known as the fun person, the hospitable one, the one who, and I like being known as a woman of substance. And that's what it came out for me. I think I'm a woman of substance. I feel could be my age, but I mean, yesterday I was with a gal that I didn't know, told her about life and death words because she happened to know we were doing this today. Life and death words are phenomenal to open people up because they never thought about it.
Yeah.
Believe her or not, I don't know what she is. It was just a person I was standing in the same place with.
Yeah.
And some about,
And oftentimes, to answer your question too, Cap, oftentimes when we're given those death words, they create or they help to create a persona that we hide behind.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes those personas keep us from each other.
It's a big mask.
So that's one of the reasons why we have trouble getting into these kind of conversations or relationships, because we're hiding behind personas that we want to kind of put forward as being who we are when we're really not that.
Right. We're
so more
afraid
than that. We're more than that.
Okay.
Well, and we're so afraid to really be seen, in our messiness and our badness, whatever we want to call it, in those places. And so we put forth what I think you want and what's safe for me. One thing that your dad would talk a lot about is that's etched in my mind over and over again is how quick we try to manage our lives in a way that I am guaranteed that you would want me, which is another way of persona. And we chase after that management, or we chase after relief in a way instead of being right where I am.
Remember, they always say, God meets you where you are, not where you pretend to be. That was a big phrase Larry used to use.
Another thing that I think was distinctive and maybe is the reason that a lot of groups don't get to these places is because that's sometimes all we focus on is what's wrong. And I remember Larry talking a lot later in his ministry about how looking for Christ in someone is much more likely to produce change than looking for, trying to find the sin. And there's always room for finding sin. It's everywhere. You're going to find it. But I think part of what we did was we genuinely encouraged one another. Not, oh, you're such a great person, not flattery.
Yeah.
I remember, and I think we even talk about it in the book, wow, something just happened just there, you brightened, or, you came alive. And those are the kinds of things that I find are missing in a lot of other relationships are, where are we, where are we looking for where Christ is at work, and where the Spirit is at work, and where are we just kind of looking at the problem and that's all we see.
Yeah.
That's true.
Sounds like this little group, the three of you, kind of has aroused something in you that makes you hungry for this outside of this. Have you guys experienced that more since the process, as you're now connecting with other people, other women? Sonya, obviously, as you're counseling people, Anna, you're in ministry at a church. I mean, has that really had the opportunity or given you the opportunity to kind of go in some different directions that maybe could be really Spirit led? I mean, that's what it seems like you're saying to me.
Absolutely.
I think so. Mhm. That I'm not afraid, you know, I could be the roadblock between someone and hell. And that's become much more important to me
Yeah.
than, and my theme has been for many years, make God look good by the way you behave. And, you know, and I think that's, it's more maybe because of my age, I think that way. But I would say that these girls think that way too.
You know
Make
what's
God look
interesting,
good.
Mom, as I look at you in these last year and a half, and Ken and I have chatted about this a little bit. It's been interesting and neat for us to see how your compassion for people who are grieving has grown. And Ken has mentioned that to me many times. In respect, you know, my brother's wife, his wife Leslie, her mother passed away 2 Fridays ago, kind of unexpectedly. And I think Mom has really kind of understood what it means to walk with someone now in the grieving process in a way that she did not apparently understand before. And that's been neat to see, Mom, how you've grown through this process too. And but I guess my question to all three of you as we get ready to wrap here in a little bit, but you know, as you guys are going through life and you've got all these different relationships, why is it so hard oftentimes to get to where the three of you seem to kind of, and maybe I'm not right here, but seem to kind of naturally get to? And with some people, it just doesn't happen. And so many people now, especially now, and I think a lot of this is responsible for some of the tragedies that we've had happen in the past few years, not to mention the one that was just the last few days. But how do we move into those, you know, kind of relationships where you do let someone know you care about them, and in a way that just doesn't seem to happen very often? And why doesn't it happen very often? Because we want it. I think we're all pretty hungry for it, but what are some of your thoughts on that? Why doesn't it happen? Because we want more of it. I got a lot of friends who love watching Bronco football. I like Bronco football, but if that's all there was, it would be pretty weak. And I want more. I want to talk to somebody about the struggles that I have, about the highs, the joys. It's not all about the discouragements and the challenges, because there's some really moments of joy. And you guys seem to have experienced a bunch of those in the process of going through grief, losing your mothers, as you're doing this project together. Why is that so hard to do?
Well, two things come to my mind. And the first thing is you have to long for it. And I believe, because we were created in the image of God to be relational, that we all have that longing. It's just a matter of, are we filling it with, not to jump on you, but Broncos games, or, you know, what are we filling it with? And that leads to the second thing I was thinking of, which is it's a huge time commitment. And you know, what we did was really huge time and money and, you know, effort, commitment. But even just, you know, saying, okay, I'm going to meet somebody for 2 hours every other week, let's say, which I think is probably minimum to really build the kind of community that we're talking about, at least for some period of time. That, for a lot of people, just feels undoable with the schedules that we keep. And so I don't know how to, all I can say is it was worth every dime and every minute, and way more than that.
Well, you use the word intentional and purposeful a lot. And those are the things that I think you're talking about there. This is not something that just accidentally happens. That's really good.
And there's always one person when you're in a larger group, or maybe two people, that just say, ooh, I don't want to go there. I've heard of some women who have done our book in a book club, and they said, I know one gal who said, I had 8 women to start, and then they were getting into the questions and a little bit of deepness.
Started peeling off a little bit.
And they peeled off, that I ended up with 4. Half of the group sort of peeled away because they didn't want to get in to any conversation that mattered.
Because it's scary.
Well, it's such an ambivalence. There's such an ambivalence too, Kev, because, you know, one of the the deepest fears in a woman's heart is that you would stay invisible,
Mhm.
you know, you wouldn't be seen. And yet it's so hard for us to put ourselves out there to be seen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. What an interesting.
So, but
there.
I think one thing though, in order to, I have a lot of times they'll say, how do you create these small communities that are willing to talk
Yeah.
in a way of having conversations that matter? And one thing, and Diana referred to it, is one thing for sure is to be willing to create the space for it to happen.
Mhm.
Because if you don't create
Mhm.
the space, it's so easy to get caught up day in and day out in just the busyness of your own life.
Right.
So true. And that's the intentionality,
Mhm.
Yeah.
making that
But I
happen.
think I think that intentionality and that creating the space is how we go deeper with Christ. Because oftentimes we're so busy going wider, WIDER with my accent here, but wider instead of deeper. And in order to go deeper, I need people with me in community because I can't know what it's like to be on the receiving end of me.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, I just got to tell you guys, I've really appreciated this time today. Is there anything else that you guys want to say to our listeners before we wrap up here? And
Well, I
things-
just appreciate that someone's been chatting about these things with us. And it was, he said on one of them that he understands things are just make you sad, you know, you're vaulting and things like that. But he was saying that he just lost his sister-in-law
Hmm.
on Tuesday. And then he related to Diana by saying he's had melanoma 3 times. And, you know, just the fact that you would think maybe only a man would want to hear this. I mean, a woman would only want to hear this.
Yeah.
But to have this man interested in this, that's just interesting to me.
Yeah.
Mhm. So thank you, those who chatted with us.
Well, ladies, thank you. Thanks for joining me today.